Welcome to Defining Moments. I'm Suzanne Quast. Today, we're going to have a roundtable discussion about this defining moment in history. Women are speaking out in record numbers in regards to sexism and abuse. Hells to the yeah. This exploded into the national spotlight with the entertainment industry and the Me Too movement, and now with numerous allegations in various industries. But has it gone too far? Yeah, in some cases I think it has. But what's become abundantly clear is just what a polarizing discussion this is. And that couldn't be more evident than in Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation to the Supreme Court Justice. It was the most narrow confirmation in U.S. history, 50-48. Here to discuss these defining moments, we have Rob Nelson. Super psyched to have you.
Good to be here.
He is a thought leader. He is a Fox News TV personality, a radio host, a podcaster, and...
That's a lot.
It's a lot. And then we have Alyshia Ocshe, actress, director, producer, podcaster, author, and now documentarian.
I just like a lot of slashes.
It's just this card is very full. And then we have Taylor Ferber. She is a red carpet reporter and a journalist for things like the Huffington Post, Playboy, Fandango, Us Weekly, just to name a few.
Yes, ma'am. You forgot Pulitzer winning. I'm just kidding. Emmy winning. No.
That's a big deal, yes. And I lost my earring. That's how excited and like how crazy things are getting.
I might lose a weave, like I said. So honestly, let's just go for it. See what happens.
I might lose some
What are you gonna lose?
in this.
Balls. Oh,
Balls?
Well.
We might all lose our minds. So
Right.
let's just see where we end up.
Okay, to start, I have to ask, do you believe Christine Blasey Ford?
Okay, I don't think he did it. I think something definitely happened to her, but there's just too many, it's just too fuzzy, for me, there's too many missing pieces, and I don't know, I'm not doubting something happened to her, I just don't think that is what happened.
So no.
No.
Okay. Alyshia?
Yes,
Okay.
plain and simple, absolutely.
Okay. Rob?
I want to twist it up a little. I think that's the wrong question, and that's why we're at such a problem. I think I believe both of them. And that may seem hard to say.
I actually agree with you.
But
No, I agree.
I honestly believe, we're so divided politically right now, it's hard for everyone out there to feel like you don't have to pick a side. But the truth is, two people can believe something and both feel right. And I believe he believes he did not do it, and I think she believes he did.
Interesting.
And they both, it's a long time ago, and her memories are clearly foggy, and we don't know if his memories might be foggy, because clearly he was a party boy.
Yeah.
So, but I think that's where we're the problem, that we feel we have to choose, and somebody has to be right and wrong.
Yeah, I agree. But I think that in order for us to have a case, or in order for us to figure out what the outcome of this is, we have to figure out what we believe, right?
What do you think?
What do you? I think, yes, I believe her. And my question to you, Alyshia, is, because people are, I get this a lot, and that's that how can you believe somebody who, when something happened to them 30 years ago, they don't have people to corroborate her story, the people who were there say they weren't, or they don't know anything about it. How do you then support somebody like that?
So two things. One, I totally agree with what you're saying. I think two people in one situation can believe their own truth and believe it vehemently and belligerently. I believe her for multiple reasons. One, I am a victim of sexual assault and abuse, and what I remember and how I remember it is, I think, according to how I was victimized at that moment. Do I remember the address? No. Do I remember what I did before that? No. Do I even remember the exact date of it? No. And I think it also depends on the timeline in which it happened. If it happened when you were a child versus a teenager versus an adult. I also, by random circumstance, since I am an actress, I was in my hotel room and I turned on the TV. I didn't have sound at first. And I studied human behavior for a profession. And I was so blown away at his antics. When you see an actor overacting, why are they overacting and moving their whole body? It's because they don't believe, they're not settled in believing. There's no conviction, there's no content to provide confidence in how they're presenting themselves. And I think also in today's world, we have to talk about something bigger. A man can be belligerent, he can be angry, he can be crazy, but a woman has to stay contained and calm in order to be verified as credible.
No, and I don't disagree with that at all. And actually, the senator from North Dakota did the exact same thing that you did. She was a yes vote, and then she watched his testimony without the sound on and changed her mind. I guess that raises the question, though, if somebody is getting their reputation, something they worked really, really hard for, is in jeopardy, are you not defensive?
Well, I mean, can I say something as a guy in that situation? I really want to address the thing, because I think this has. What we're getting at is a whole world of how we divide the sexes, and this is part of the problem. I mean, I agree with you that that's what we think women have to be a certain way. The truth is, I wish she had, for me, part of it, her being that way bothered me. I wanted her to be more angry. And I'm going to be honest, I felt like some of that was played. We're not allowed to say she played something to the cameras. She conveniently skipped how her friend didn't know anything. She conveniently left out why she really wasn't afraid to fly. Like, she went from being so smart and on it to suddenly kind of, oh, I don't know. And to me, I would have rather she'd been like, you know what? This is bullshit. Like, you guys, you stop being like just what, you know, and truthfully, I think that's a double standard we do have. But I think we're in a whole double standard around the sexes. And that's part of what bothers me, that a woman who has claimed some kind of a sexual misconduct, whether it's assault or harassment, is somehow viewed as a precious flower that has to be protected. And I don't like that. I don't actually think that's empowering to women. Sexual assault is a horrible crime. So is any kind of assault. And we've created this notion that if she was grabbed and held down on a bed, that's as bad as if somebody like shot you. Or it's worse than if somebody shot you. And somehow we can't question her. We can't challenge her. And I don't know how you guys address that, because I get that it's a very specific kind of crime.
That's why that's the thing. And I feel like we're going down such a slippery slope, because we're at this point where automatically, and I'm, by the way, so enlightened by what you said about your experience, but we are at the point where a woman says something and she's right away. So that's a scary thing to do, and I want your take on that.
You know what? I do understand, like, with the Me Too movement, for the pendulum to swing one way, which it absolutely needed to do. Of course, we were going to have the naysayers and the people that want to come out for fame and glory.
Yep, I agree.
And that's what bothers me about the Me Too movement, is for the true victims out there that are scared to come forward. And the reason why they're scared to come forward, I never came forward. I was part of a Me Too movement that didn't go forward because there wasn't enough credible people, and I didn't want to put my name out there because I didn't want to be victimized. And we have to remember that this poor woman is now being grilled about her fear of flying, but yet she's there, but we're not really talking about what happened. And for me, it's bigger than political parties charged. It's a part of a woman using her voice to say, I was victimized in this way, and there's shame and guilt and lies on both sides. I think as a victim, you lie to yourself constantly, and you're like, this didn't happen. I don't want this to happen. Maybe I made this up in my mind. Maybe I did something to do it. You don't want people, you already question yourself because you've been violated. And then I think as the person who's created the crime or victimized you, they don't want to think of themselves as an awful person.
But I guess, though, my question, or to also go into what you were saying, you know, as far as she should have been this way, that like kind of makes me crazy, because there's no one should way you should do it.
I agree. It's not fair to say she should have. I just meant the notion that we have this notion that women have to behave a certain way, and I don't actually think that's true.
I'm so glad to hear that.
I think it's being perpetuated by women. This notion that we can't. I mean, go ahead and try. Watch what happens if you stand up. I don't think people would be.
That's what's happening right now.
Some people will always, but I think a lot of people would be like, you go.
But she did, and look what's happened now. They're tearing it apart, and I get it. Like, and the same thing happened to me when I was in high school. We went to high school together, and I couldn't tell you if she was at the party that it happened to me at. I don't remember any of the details, but you know what I do remember? I remember I remember coming to when a man's hands were in my private parts. And I remember there was another man in the corner watching. And I remember freaking out, being so disoriented, and then getting up and running out. Like she said, I don't know when it was. I don't know where it was. But I know who it was without a shadow of a doubt.
Right. Oh, you said you do know who it was. Because that's what I was going to say. It's like with this case, if all of these things are uncertain, how is that the one thing that you are certain of? And also, it's like,
you know.
You know.
Well, okay,
but like,
so
you
wait,
know, like,
so you guys are all women, and I can't, and I'm going to say, I can't understand that feeling. And again, I have a problem that we don't allow gender differences to exist. I do think sexual assault is, we say we're all the same, we're not. That's why sexual assault is a crime that women feel a certain way and guys have a slightly different reaction to. It's like if some girl grabbed me and whatever, a woman would be like, I've just been violated, and that's fair. But the problem I have with this whole he said, she said thing is, and the whole memory thing, and I'm not dissing her memory, something happened to her, is a woman says something happened to me. I was held down on a bed. I don't remember where, I don't remember when, I don't remember how I got there. All I remember is the people who were there and the person who did it. And the people who were there say they weren't there.
But also
hold on, doesn't matter. 6 people at a party. I'm just trying to be rational for a second.
I agree with
6
you.
people at a party in 1982. One of them is your best friend. You disappeared from the party. You didn't have a cell phone. You had to make a call for someone to come and get you. Okay, you don't remember who got you. Your best friend didn't wonder where you went from the party with 5 people and didn't ask you the next day, where were you? How come you were suddenly gone? And that same best friend insists, I never met this guy at a party with 5 people? Like, some of it strains credibility. I'm not saying she's lying. I'm just saying if any other situation had that, we'd go, I'm sorry, it just doesn't stack up. It's not like you can't forget things. She forgot everything.
I agree with her, but unfortunately, I don't think that we have enough evidence to actually be able to do anything about it.
The prosecutor said that. I don't know if you guys read. She wrote, a brief basically being like, this would never move forward because it's even weaker, quote unquote, than something that would move forward.
So can I ask you something based on that? Because I think that's a valid thing, the legal thing. And Taylor, you're not saying, you're sort of saying, you're saying I don't think he did it and there's not enough. But why is the notion that she did it, that he did it? Why is the idea that he insists he did it as women not as valid an argument? I mean, in other words, we assume because she knows she remembers it's him, it must be him. And what my question is, how is this political? Like, he insists it wasn't him, and yet people are like, he's lying. There's nothing in his history that suggests he was a party boy, but that he's ever done this. He's clearly has a strong reputation with women. He's the first guy to put 4 women clerks on. I mean, why is there an assumption that he must be lying?
That's why I want to play devil's advocate. Okay, which no one would say this, no headline would say this, which sidebar, like, I don't know if you guys noticed, every headline called him angry, every single, almost like 90%.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's one. What if playing devil's advocate, what if he didn't do it, okay? Automatically, this is why I asked before, like, as soon as a woman comes out, no matter what it is, he's wrong, she's right, and that's very dangerous. What if he didn't? Okay, and I said this to my friend the other day with a 4-year-old son. I don't know, I know you don't have a son. Do you have a son?
I don't.
What if this was your son, your brother, your best friend, your husband, and 100%. He genuinely didn't do it, and he's in that position? Would you not be scared shitless?
Well,
so that's like another
his whole entire reputation
off of one.
Well, would you be shocked if it was your husband or your fiance? If it was do you have a brother?
My husband.
If it was your husband, wouldn't you expect him to be unwound and furious
like
if he has now been accused of something that's taking his life apart? Wouldn't you expect him to be up there and be fuming and crazy?
Thing, I mean, that no one has acknowledged.
Also, do you think that a Supreme Court justice should have a certain demeanor?
It is time we end the BS pretense that these people are somehow, we don't think they are anyway, that's why everybody rushes to the polls to prevent the president from getting elected who will appoint the wrong ones. They're human beings. They're not apolitical. And I'm finally glad that we're going to slowly tear that down. They are not 9 gods who are like monks who've been whatever. They're human beings now hopefully they don't let that influence completely their decisions, but good, let's stop pretending they're not. Let's stop pretending they don't have political bias. Let's stop pretending that Ruth Ginsburg, wouldn't come out and have, equally the opposite view in private. She probably goes home and it's like, Donald Trump's a moron and like the Republican, good, say it in public. I'm sorry, that part I like.
But I want to know from you too, because you both have had these horrible experiences, and you even said, which I love this you said, the problem with Me Too is that there are people coming out there just to get attention, and it's disrespectful and a slap in the face to people who have experiences. Okay, so now what? How do we differentiate? Or is everything going to be on this polar extreme where do you know what I mean? How now do we move forward?
I think there's two things at play. I think it's Vice does this amazing show where they take victims of abuse and they take their victimizer and they put them in the same room. And I think that this is a situation in which, it is he said, she said. He doesn't remember this because it wasn't impactful for him. Just like when you're a little kid and you fall down the stairs, your friends might not remember you falling down the stairs, but you remember.
I don't want people to think I'm throwing her under the bus. Something happened to her. I don't know I'm not thinking she's making this up. I think she was played by the Democratic Party.
I do too.
But they offered to do this in private. It was an offer made to her. It was in the press. It was given to her lawyers. She claims she didn't know. She's either lying, which, again, she's a professor at, Palo Alto, Stanford. How did no one tell her? She never read in the papers. Her lawyers didn't tell her they're offering to fly to you and do this privately or have you do it behind closed doors. She knew she was going to come up publicly, and that's okay.
Maybe she didn't want to be private about it anymore because somebody is getting ready to take a seat.
That's fine, but she didn't say that. She said, I didn't know. She acted like she had no choice and was shocked. I'm just saying she chose to speak publicly, and good for her.
Agreed. But
here's my issue. Why didn't the Republican Party just say there's several other great conservative nominees that we could push forward because this is an issue that we need to step aside and take matters into our own? Instead, they were like, we're going to push this man through.
That's where I think on both parties, it was a political play.
That's reason.
And that's the problem. The Democrats withheld, then they brought it out.
And then the Republicans went, we ain't backing down. We ain't backing down. That's the big problem.
But at the same time, and I'm going to play devil's advocate for this, is if the guy didn't do it and the Republicans, then he missed out on an opportunity of a lifetime that's literally going to change his entire career. Not only that, but then he has now been put embarrassed in front of everybody. And, I think that the line we're towing is if we were to say that he did it and if he were to be prosecuted and if he wouldn't be on the Supreme Court justice, we're setting a very scary precedent going forward. Because like you were saying, it's a he said, she said. We don't have evidence. And I think, unfortunately, what that now means is for women, they need to speak up when it happens.
She chose an incredibly public spotlight, and I'm not saying it's her fault.
He was holding
dragged into the middle again. But this is where, and this is the hard part for me. There is an assumption you're making that she is somehow a pure victim with no motive, that something happened, and that's the bottom line. Wait, you're not willing to consider, and it's like I'm a bad person if I suggest it, that maybe she did have. What if something happened to her and she doesn't remember who it was and she decided might as well take it out on him because he's a rotten, crummy conservative who's going to end Roe versus Wade? Why is that not possible to consider? You'd consider if it was a guy with a similar story?
Because of her history, because I think her going to therapy in 2012, if she would have come out...
she said something happened to her. She didn't say the name of the person.
I'm pretty sure that she said that she thought because I was watching it this morning, and then she said that she thought
we haven't seen the notes.
The perpetrator was Brett Kavanaugh.
I've heard both. But again, Congress asked to see the therapy notes and they wouldn't give them to them. I'm just saying, the notion that we can't question her motive is where I have a problem, not about her and this. The notion that someone who claims a man did something to me, whether it's holding me down on a bed, harassing me, or actually doing something horrible, raping me, or making severe, contact with me, is automatically, I cannot now, and I think that you can't question it.
Being victimized again. You have to remember that. So let's use a woman named Sarah. Sarah is horribly victimized. For her to go through and press charges, she's going to be victimized all over again. Were you drunk? What do you remember? Were you wearing something slutty? Did you say something? Why were you at the party? Like, you get double scrutinized. Right. You become a victim again.
But it's on both sides, right? So, like, the guy, of course, automatically reputation destroyed. The woman, everything you're saying. And I think stripping away the politics, my big concern with all of this, and Me Too and everything, is when I'm all for women speaking out, absolutely. But I feel like men and women are so divided And
not even just men and women, Republicans and Democrats. This is now
so that's the thing, is that they're becoming one and the same. So I'm a reporter, and I actually recently, literally 2 days ago, pitched an opinion piece. What I'm saying right now, I think, how productive is all of this? I want men to understand and hear, not be like, I'm not fucking touching you. I'm afraid. I had a man ask to compliment me on a red carpet. Literally, I was like, this is pathetic. And the editor wrote me back and said, basically deemed the piece a conservative point of view. And I'm an independent, first of all. But that's the thing. It's like, this is a human level, and the fact that it's become Democrat versus Republican, that I think is a problem.
And has it gone too far? Well, I have a friend who is an actor, and he said on set now, they sat them all down, all the men, and said, you cannot look at a woman for more than 5 seconds. Literally. You cannot touch in any way, shape, or form. You cannot say babe or thank you, sweetie, or hun. None of that.
Tyra Banks told me at the AMAs 2 days ago that she's an EP at her company. They literally have a rule where, what did she say? Something like, you literally can't pass a woman in a hallway.
I get it. I get how horribly violating it has to be. If somebody did, I want to kill you know what I mean? In my mind, I want to kill someone who did that to someone I love. And if I ever saw a guy doing, something like that, I have this funny story I tell. In my first time I was in a strip club, I was 19 or whatever, and it was a birthday party, and I saw this girl. They were all lap dancing around, and I called her over. I'm like, get out! Why are you here? Like, you don't need this. You're beautiful. You're smart enough. And she started crying, and my friends were like, you made her cry. I'm like, you made her, like. I'm not a guy who is insensitive to it, but I feel like we've created this environment where the things you're worried about get worse, because now everybody's questioning because they feel like I have to defend my life. You shouldn't have to feel like a victim twice. Someone shouldn't question you, but if we can't question any situation, it leaves us to feel like we have to question everything.
I think that there's a bigger issue at hand. I think the whole human society, we're living in fear constantly instead of looking and living in love.
Let me ask you something. If you guys think that he did it, let's say you thought he did it, do you think he should not be on the Supreme Court justice?
If I thought he did it?
Yes.
Yes.
You think he should or should not be?
Should not.
I agree.
Should not.
Because I was watching several interviews, and a lot of women said, so what? It happened 30 years ago, and he was 17 years old.
That's all I don't think that's attacking each other, and I would love to see how many of those women are actually educated that said stuff like that, because I feel like they're being either swayed by male persuasion within their own families, or to hear another woman talk like that about another woman's experience is just horrific. It's the issue is more within our own gender.
Well, and then that's a bigger issue. If you're preaching to boys that it's okay to do that, and it's just a 17-year-old boy doing that.
But in answer to your question, that's where, again, though, I go back to, yes, but you have to have more of a basis than simply, look, if she had one piece of something that the hardest thing for me was the best friend friend for life saying, I wasn't there and I never met him. And that was the hardest piece for me. And again, I'm not saying it, I'm just saying having nothing makes it hard for me to think he shouldn't be there because people have said, well, he shouldn't be there just because this accusations came up, even if we can't prove them. And I'm like, well, at that level, we're all done. I mean, if I shouldn't do something because you accused me of it, that's a dangerous standard.
There was a guy back in May, and
yes, I agree. I just think his behavior wasn't very judicial for me. Like things in which it just makes me really uncomfortable.
Why should it be?
What do you mean, why should it be?
Why should it be?
Why does he have to keep his composure?
Why does he have to keep a composure? That's my whole point. It's the myth of the justice.
I think she argued because she does.
Because she does. Like,
so I don't agree, but
she didn't have to keep composure.
She absolutely had to.
She did.
She absolutely. I understand. And you know what? I appreciate you saying that. You're an anomaly. You're an anomaly from, and I do. I wish the world would think more like you. I truly do. I wish women could be emotional and be out there. And
I see what you're saying, because she would be
wish
labeled as
that.
crazy or a loose cannon or whatever.
Credibility immediately.
But then again, so did he. Like I said before, every single headline was angry Kavanaugh.
Right, he got that. In that sense, it doesn't seem to be a sexist standard. But I do think the notion that women feel they have to hold back, I do understand that's the way we've been. I guess I'm saying
we've been oppressed for so long.
But I think we're in a new era.
Yeah,
and I think the era we're in, if you look outside of these high political things, look at women who are willing to express emotion. They often become very powerful in the entertainment world. I mean, I think we are at a place where men and women will accept an authentic emotional, what I guess I'm saying is we want authenticity. And I don't think most people feel, if somebody feels something horrible happened to them, whether they're the victim or the accused, that if they got angry, that wouldn't feel appropriate. We doubted him because I think it had to do with he was shading his whole drinking thing, and something was fishy about that, because he didn't want to suggest it, because then maybe if you couldn't remember things, how do you know you couldn't remember that?
Yeah, 100%.
But I think we sense credibility, and I think if a person came out and said, this happened to me, and they're crying, and it boom, I think the public would be like, you know what? Wow, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm looking ahead of where we are.
That's also, you have to remember, it was a trauma that happened to her 3 decades ago.
So she might not.
And she's already been through therapy about it. I can talk about my traumas now because I've dealt with them emotionally. And now it is almost like a person, I'm watching what happened versus experiencing it over and over again, because I've been able to heal from it without needing my attacker to come forward and claim stake in how he attacked
So, you know, maybe what it was for me was the answer to that is, and again, I don't know her, I don't know who she really is. I feel like she was guided to behave a certain way. And I don't know if that woman in private would be that. And all I'm saying is, whoever that woman in private is, and maybe that woman prepped her, and that woman, maybe and he was too, and clearly that's why he said, no one read this thing. He's like, this is my own. But maybe had she come out, maybe she didn't emotionally connect, but had she been, you know what? I think this whole process is BS the way it happened. I don't know. Maybe the senators would have been, don't be disrespectful. But I'm just saying, I wish people felt they could be, and I think they can be authentic. And I feel the power a woman has is, I guess I'm fighting this notion that women have to be a certain way and they are certain kind of victims. And I feel like it's a built-in disempowerment structure that sadly men want. Men want you to feel. Men want you to feel like you shouldn't cry. Men want you to feel like if somebody touches you, it's the worst crime ever. Because that's why I could kill you if you kill him. If I was your husband in the old days. So we want you to be perfect little flowers instead of being like, you know, like.
But I think that's sort of where we're headed, and that's what's the opposite.
I think I'm being a feminist about it.
Yes, top like the feminist on set. Everybody has now witnessed it. He's now going to go around talking about that. Okay, so now here we are. What do you guys say is the best possible way to move forward?
That's what I was going to ask you guys,
Get more women in the floor, in the Senate, in office, so that we are represented in this voice. So there is equal equality emotionally, physically having women there, and intellectually. I feel like we need to have more women present in our judicial system overall. And I think that that's one thing we have to be super grateful for.
Can I say something on that, though? Because it's going to get no press. And this was not something he did after. It was something he had planned before. He has had more women clerks. I was just getting ready to say it. He's the first Supreme Court justice in history to have all women law clerks. And that's not something he did after. That was already decided before the confirmation hearing started.
Is that true? Like, how do you know it was like already decided?
Because he had to pick them and submit them. They had to be cleared in case he got confirmed, because they'd start the next day.
Can I say one thing on that I think that we've also the world has kind of overlooked? Who I was at 13, 17, 20, 30 years old is a far different person. And he can still be the same person that puts 4 women in this position, that is a good dad, that goes and does these things. And he could have still done that at 17. So agreed. An argument on a person's demeanor, I don't think a person's personality and demeanor should hold up. What's the point of evolution? So I do agree with everything. I think it's great that he's doing these things. I think he has a daughter. life might have changed after he had a daughter.
True. But then, what do you think then is the punishment for something like that, for what he's done now? How should he be punished?
For what?
With the information that how should he have been punished?
I don't think it should have been how he should have been punished.
For being accused of sexually assaulting somebody.
Punished for being accused?
Yeah, because she's saying people can change.
People can
she's
change.
saying if he did it.
You know what I would like? What I would have loved
what
and
you're
had
asking.
and not a punishment. What I would have liked is an acknowledgement of, hey, I was 17 and I don't necessarily remember what happened. And if she's saying this thing, I'd like to sit and talk with her. That would have been like,
actually, okay. He couldn't
actually
know, but actually, I'm going to agree with you.
I agree with
He
you.
said, I didn't do this. I don't remember everything I did. I know I didn't do this. I certainly have no memory of it. If you really think this happened, it wasn't me, but yes. I love that. And I want to hear it. I would literally be like, you are a stand-up. He could
not have come forward and even said he doesn't remember it or he did it. It's not how it was. Like, that's not his perspective.
And
if he drank too much, because he never would have gone
really
for
what happened.
That said,
right, but I think that's the reality of really what happened.
And that would be a huge, because you ask what now, that like moving forward politically, culturally, that would be a huge step because again, with bridging that gap of men and women, he said, you're right, being like, honest, look, I don't know, I don't remember. Holy shit, would that really?
Well, I don't know. He doesn't think he'd say that. I think he'd say, I didn't do it, but there are things I don't remember. Because that's what the guy's
but I'm saying,
agree.
But I'm saying on every level lower than that.
He doesn't know what he doesn't remember. Exactly. And that made me go, okay, why don't you? But you're right. It's the political climate. And maybe that's what's sad. That they knew on both sides that this was a political war with the people in the middle. She was a pawn. No, what anyone wants to say.
Course,
and it's why, it's why, what's his name? The DNC co-chair.
The Lindsey Graham.
No, the DNC, Keith Ellison, who was accused by his ex of domestic abuse, who says she has hospital reports and the whole thing. In the last month, it's been swept under the rug, and the DNC hired a lawyer who said her allegations don't stand up. And she's like, why don't my allegations stand up? I have doctors and things. He beat me up. Like,
this is way worse.
Because he's a Democrat and he's black, and they don't want to go after him. And both sides knew that, so going in, that's where this got so ugly, because it wasn't about her. It wasn't about sexual rights and healing. It was about Republicans and Democrats. And that's where we've come. And I'm worried we're becoming that way with men and women. It's not about whether it's about believe her. Hashtag believe her.
And
period.
I'm afraid not
or
to,
hashtag don't believe
and not
her.
Well, that's the thing. It's becoming so polarized, and not to kiss I mean, I love men and I love women. I love being a woman. I'm a feminist, but it's also like, I don't know. There just has to be this bridge, because right now it's just it's too. I'm afraid that men, like you said this the other day to me, Rob. He was like, I think the good guys are like, I'm afraid, like I don't know, and it's not making the bad guys, or is it making them any better?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Making them that necessarily stop. I think it starts from the top down. Like, regardless of what your beliefs are, conservative, Democrat, Republican, who we have in office right now, it's the top down. How he speaks about people, women, him going on the whole tirade of not, bashing her in front of a group of people that were cheering it on. Like, we're perpetuating hate, and we're perpetuating a division.
100%.
But we all are.
We are divided.
He's just a symptom of an epidemic.
I agree, and it's been going on. And this is where I worry that we are leaving the politics out. On a gender level, we are dividing and dividing. When my point was in that comment was, good men are starting to feel like it doesn't matter. Being good ain't going to help me because I'm going to get blamed if I do anything. And the bad men aren't suddenly going, I'm going to be a better man. So I'm worried we're losing the common ground where there could be
the common ground. But do you think then it's also, I have a friend who owns his own company, and he said that he was concerned. He said, if I'm going to be really honest with you and level with you about hiring women, meaning that if I have two people who are equally qualified, I then have to think twice before I hire the woman, because what could follow with that? What kind of sexual harassment suits? Is she going to come out and say stuff? Which is then
right. But that's exactly you don't want. But that's what you don't want, and that's what I'm worried about. If we are creating that by creating this, but to me that comes back to the notion, hashtag believe her. No, there's no hashtag believe her simply because she's a woman.
Or even
any more
like-
than it should be hashtag believe him, which is what we used to have
Right.
without the hashtags.
You're right.
Because he's a man. Like the answer to we always believed men isn't always believe women. It's let's stop making it a gender issue.
Right.
Believe what you think is true. Start everyone, start finding a balance. If I say you look great today, I haven't harassed you. If I
No.
squeeze you up against a wall, I have.
Of course.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there needs to be also
You know?
some common sense.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's also varying degrees of sexual harassment and then that the punishment should reflect that?
I do.
Well, that's the problem, of course, but that's what's scary now is like Rob was just saying, no one knows. I was on a red carpet, literally verbatim, a man said to me, he said, I don't want to get sued, but I just want to tell you, you look pretty in your dress. And I was like, I'm horrified that I even live in a world where you can't tell someone they look pretty. And it's like, that's the thing. Is that harassment? You know?
And it's not, but I think in order for it to settle, it's like you said, we went from one extreme of believe him, and now we've gone to the other extreme of believe her. Hopefully, and now since the Me Too movement has been out for a year, there is backlash. So backlash, hopefully we'll put it back.
Agreed.
And we'll make it an equal part. And I really hope that we can look at this as a human experiment. And otherwise, we're all, what's the point? Where are we going? We're going towards what you're saying.
Do
It's
you think-
complete separation and division.
Right. Yeah.
But do you think, as you said, coming from the top down, and look at who our president is, and whether you love him or hate him, he does create divide.
He's the
course.
divider in chief.
Do you think it's possible?
No question. And I've defended things he's done, and I like that he's tipping the system upside down, but he is the divider in chief. That guy has no
Divider
unified
in
agenda.
chief.
Yeah.
No
Do
unifying
you think
that
it's
man.
possible with the divider in chief in office?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Okay,
I
why?
like your optimism. No.
Well, it is possible, but it depends on the rest of us. It's why, I've always said his being in office creates all these rifts, which creates an opportunity for real change to come in because we have a broken system. But unfortunately, the reaction to that hasn't been bringing real change. The reaction has been bringing the resistance. And I feel like, no, not if the answer to that is everybody just goes, I'm going to fight harder versus I am going to lift this up. I'm going to use this opportunity and lift it. We could collectively.
How do you lift it?
agree,
How do you
though.
lift it when a man is so
He's not controlling the world.
But that's the thing,
we can-
exactly, I agree with that. And being in Hollywood and immersed in it so much, I feel like people and celebrities and people are just getting so angry, and that's causing everything to be polarized even more versus going, love him or hate him, whatever. Say, hardcore liberal, he's an idiot, and to prove him wrong and all of his, what he's trying to do and divide, I'm going to try and bridge the gap. Instead, they're feeding into it and making themselves do it. Am I making sense? Do you know what I mean? Because they're so angry.
The
and just in
divider
spite
in
of
chief
him.
likes division.
Yeah.
And sadly, the left and the mainstream media
feeding into
has
it.
not realized that he wants them to go crazy.
do this,
It's
that's what I'm
more
saying.
division, better. It's like if they were, we
Right,
ain't gonna
yeah.
buy, we ain't biting.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but what are they
the
supposed to
problem I
do?
have is
Put
also it's,
something, put
So you're saying no? So you're saying no protests, no chasing people
I mean,
down.
there's things to
what?
protest, but at a certain level, there's an opportunity to offer real changes off of this. I mean, not to get too far off, but Kanye West shows up at the White House with Jim Brown, and instead of looking, and I watched what he said, instead of looking at it as an opportunity for growth, the left and the media is just hammering on how it's a
course.
joke. Jim Brown's 30 years of activism in the inner cities, you cannot question that man's credentials or integrity or his support for the black community for his entire life. And if you listen to what Kanye said, Kanye was basically like, look, we got to fix things. We got to get black people out of prison. We got to try. If people looked at opportunities like that and said, let's get on board the good stuff, but instead it's like, we can't. We have to hate everything. And both sides are hating.
and both sides are
Well,
Both
right.
sides are hating. And now we're in hate fest.
And I agree with you guys, what you're saying, and the hate fest, but what I have a really problem with is his language. Not so much about I agree with what you guys are saying about the liberals. We're coming out and then everybody's fighting him in his own game. We've stooped to his level.
Agreed. Yeah.
My problem, I think that the people that are stooping to his level, we're smart enough. We know better, but you get triggered. You're getting triggered by the language that he's using. I'm more concerned about the uneducated people that he is speaking to and spitting out things that aren't true that they're just like, yep, that's it. I mean, that's the problem that I have. And then people are coming forward with their hate that it's always been there, but now they have a voice.
But it's I think, but this is a problem, and I hear this I hit my mic. I hear this constantly in Hollywood. I think it's a problem to assume people he's talking to are uneducated.
Well, there's uneducated people everywhere.
There's uneducated no matter what.
There's as many uneducated people on the left.
Not you, but like people in Hollywood say that.
I'm saying the hatred, the neo-Nazis, the racist people that are like,
they're a minority of our country.
I understand, but he's speaking to them and he's allowing them to,
but they've
to speak on a
always
platform.
but they're there, and I'm saying, the end of the day, I hear you. I just think it's like the reality is there's enough voices, there's enough room for us to elevate this and change it. And if we choose to, if everybody out there chooses to, we make a choice today. Do I want to go out and just hate on the other side, or do I want to go out and fight for what I believe in and recognize I disagree with the other side? And some things I hate about them, and some things, maybe they're doing some things that are good, but whatever. I want something different for the future, and I'm going to put it in place. Yeah. To me, that's an option. It's a choice we all have every day.
And I think that's the choice that a lot of people are trying to make. It just keeps getting, like you said, divide and and
I don't know how many people are. I say everybody out there, what choice are you making? No, I'm saying, I don't know how many people really are. How many people are just feeding into the hate frenzy on both sides?
Well, what would you say to people? What would each of you say to people at home watching on what they should do or could do, or the mental state that they should be in throughout all of this to make a change and to make it better?
Educate yourself on the awareness of what's happening in the world on both sides. I think it's we said this earlier, I think you have to seek to understand before you're understood. We're all coming out with loud voices of like, hear me, right. But we're not hearing the other side.
Right.
And how Trump got into office is because he played to hearing a side that the Democrats ignored. So I think we both have to hear each other, and we have to be more active. I think that's the one thing that's great is like we have with Obama, the one thing that I would say is we're all like, he's got it, we're good.
Yeah.
And that 8 years of he's got it, we're good, and everybody was pretty like laid back about it. So I'm glad that everybody's getting charged up. But like use your energy, like you're saying, use your energy for good and putting it behind causes and things that you want to see come to fruition versus just putting it towards hating the other side, because we're not going to get anywhere that way.
Right. That's what I was going to say is as much as you can, I would think to try to, because it has become, so attached to politics, is try and really strip that away. You might disagree with people with your affiliation or agree, but I think seeking what you believe is the truth, and even like you said, educating people around you, having little conversations like this. You don't have to have a massive, that will go, that trickles and goes a long way, and say it in social media and quit jumping on bandwagons because somebody else is who's like really, truly, what you think, Yeah.
I would say my thing would be everybody out there should pick whichever side you're on, left, right, or in the middle. You should go to a website, 2 websites or Facebook platforms that you totally disagree with, and join them in an honest, not a hostile, violent, and watch if you're a Republican, every other day watch CNN. If you're a liberal, every other day watch Fox News, and try to hear the other side. You don't have to agree, but if you don't even try to hear them and understand them, we're never going anywhere.
No.
If you don't see both sides think there's some truth in what they're saying, and if we don't try to hear it, we're done.
Boom. I feel like we just dropped the mic on that. Wow. Thank you all. What great advice and what a great discussion. And hopefully discussions like this, like we said, lead to greater change and to greater understanding and more education. And, I always say our lives can change in a moment. And it's not what happens in the moment, it's what we do with the moment. And now here we are. And what are we collectively going to do with this moment? Let's make it better.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is so great that we all got to represent. I feel good. You feel good?
I feel good.
Yeah.
You feel good?
Yes, I feel great. Yes. DM us.
Do you feel good?
Yeah. Where can they find you guys on social media?
Okay, talk to me, Taylor. Across the board.
Alyshia Ocshe, Alyshia Ocshe. All one, yes.
Instagram, it's Rob Nelson, and also the full Nelson Live.
There we go. So DM us all with questions, your comments, your concerns, and maybe we'll continue this conversation. Thanks for watching.